Joining us on our first call, a couple members from Rick Ware Racing. First, we're joined by driver Tim Brown, driver of the number 15 Ford Mustang Dark Horse, getting ready to make his debut at the Clash here at Bowman Gray Stadium. If you've got a question for Tim, by all means, raise your hand in the Zoom platform, or send me a chat and I can get you in line however you'd like to do that. We'll have Tim for about 15, 20 minutes here, and then we'll be joined immediately afterwards by owner Rick Ware. So, Tim, let me just kick it off. I mean, you're trading in a number 83 for a number 15, and this is a different kind of car, but just, what's the feeling like? You've had a few weeks to digest this news. Just your thoughts on this opportunity that's presented yourself here soon.
Man, it's honestly been overwhelming. When Rick and I talked about it, a month or so ago, it's like, man, yeah, it'd be cool. And then now that it's actually coming to fruition, it's like mind blowing. And anybody that knows me, very seldom am I ever speechless, but this has kind of made me speechless. I was talking to Mike Arning a few minutes ago. I never knew that this would blow up to be such a big story, and how cool it is for myself and my family and here, everybody at RWR and everyone in the short track racing world is pretty cool news.
All right, we got some questions here for you, so we'll kick it off here first with Davey Siegel. Hey, Davey.
Hey guys, Happy New Year. Thanks for the time, Tim. I'm curious, in the last handful of weeks since you've been announced to have the ride, how many people are hitting you up for advice or tips or tricks of the trade ahead of this race, and how cool is that if so?
Actually, it's right the opposite. So a lot of the cup drivers that I'm buddies with, like, man, I was going to get you to be my driver coach or something, but so now I don't even talk with those guys because we want to go run as good as we can and not help those guys out at all.
What's the process been like at the shop instead of working on it, wrenching on it, actually figuring out how you're going to feel inside the cockpit, seat fitting, all those different things?
Well, we're actually working on seat stuff today. But yeah, man, it's actually really cool with the guys that we have here. We're a tight knit little family here at RWR, and everybody's really taking a lot of pride in the car that we're building for myself to go run up there. And it's a really neat deal to get to be able to work on a car that you're going to drive with a bunch of your closest friends and coworkers. It's a pretty cool deal.
Cool. Thanks, Tim.
All right, let's go on to Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for taking the time with us. I was curious to know, if you guys talked about if this is a success, if this could lead to maybe other opportunities behind the wheel, other short tracks and races in the future.
That'd be a better question for Rick. I'm a racer, man. I'd race anytime, anywhere that I could. So you'd probably have to ask Rick that one.
Sure. Thank you.
Tim, I'm just curious too, before we get to Zach, you've done some testing in the past in cup cars and all that stuff. So this isn't totally foreign to you. I mean, is there a comfort level there that you have?
Yeah, for sure. I've done a lot of testing on the cup cars over the years, just not this particular car. But as far as the weight and the power and all that, I'm definitely used to that for years and years of testing with the things. But this new car is definitely different. So there'll be a learning curve there. But we'll go do our best, and hopefully we're competitive and have a shot at winning this thing.
All right, let's go on to Zach. Hey, Zach, go ahead.
Thanks, Dan. Hey, Tim. Just wondering, I know this inaugural event is going to put Bowman Gray on the radar for a lot of people who may not have ever seen it. How would you describe to someone who's never seen Bowman Gray, how would you describe it to them?
Well, they call it the Madhouse for a reason. That place is super exciting because it's the pinnacle of short track racing. Like when you're driving a modified there, the thing's turning 8,500 RPMs and really loud, but you can hear the fans cheering you or booing you while you're actually racing. And I don't know that there's any cup track that you could hear that. So it's definitely different. The fans there are super passionate. Just the history of the place. It's going to be an awesome show, I believe.
And I know you've grown up there, pretty much all your life, and your family history runs deep there. You kind of mentioned the history. Do you feel it when you get there? And I know it's been there pretty much since the start of NASCAR. Do you feel it when you walk through the gate?
Absolutely. And, one cool thing about racing there is, just about every Saturday night, a family will come through there, and they may be from Florida or California or Texas. And they're like, hey, we took our family vacation to come here and see this place, and then, go up to the Blue Ridge Mountains or, go do some cool stuff around North Carolina. But they actually spend their family vacation just to come and witness the stadium. Just that's how historical the place is, and man, that's pretty neat. And now the Cup Series is coming there. Man, it's just going to boost it even more, I believe.
Awesome. Thanks.
Tim, I'm curious because I've been to Bowman Gray multiple times with my son. We've watched you out there doing your thing, but the old guardrail is gone. We got safer barriers. We see them power washing the press box. I mean, they're putting a new coat of paint. And I mean, what's it going to be like to go in and really see this in a new light? The stadium's going to look totally different, just aesthetically. What do you think about that?
It is. I've actually seen a couple of photos floating around, and it doesn't even look like the same place. Like you see an aerial view of it, the track looks similar, but as far as the new walls and the safer barrier and the new catch fence and lighting and all that, it's like a brand new place. So it's how cool is that too, right? That's something that we and the people that race there weekly and the fans that come there weekly will be able to enjoy that also for a long time to come, not just for one weekend here.
Exactly. All right, let's go to Bob Pockros. Hey, Bob.
Hey, I'm just curious, Tim, how do you think the Cup cars are going to race there? What is that race going to be like?
Man, I'm hoping it's going to be a really good race. The fear that I have is the cold. If it's really, really cold, like 30 degrees and the track's cold and the tires are cold, that, it'll be slipping and sliding quite a bit. Racing at the stadium is hard. I think it's going to be more difficult than even racing at the Coliseum in LA, just because of the asphalt difference and the weather, the temperature difference. But it's going to be the same for everybody. So I think the bottom will definitely be dominant, and just got to have your car turning really good in the center and have plenty of forward drive, and you'll be fine.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Bob. Let's go to Dustin Long. Hello, Dustin.
Hey, Tim, a few things. Hey, I wanted to ask, I saw where you got started, at least in NASCAR, with working with Cale Yarborough's team while in high school. Can you give me the story about that, about how a high schooler got on with Cale and what you were doing then?
So I was right out of high school, but my grandfather, Eb Clifton, he owned race cars that raced at the stadium, since the beginning of the stadium. And I grew up in his shop, and he was buddies with Junior Johnson and Cale and all those guys, because he had some Grand National cars, they called them back in the day, that ran the circuit. And I was actually going to go to college and be an design engineer, because my grandpa thought that'd be the best thing to do. Well, he had some conversations with some people, and Ken Glenn was the crew chief for Cale Yarborough at the time. And Ken was like, "Hey man, I really need a guy now, and we'll pay you pretty decent." So that's how that started, and been doing it ever since.
I know when you've won the championships at Bowman Gray, especially in recent years, been a lot of family and friends there to celebrate with you. How many do you anticipate having with you to watch this Cup debut next month?
As many as I can have there, for sure. My son Cam and my daughter Marley, she's only 3, but she's already a racer. Like everything that she and Cam do is a competition. So definitely got to have them there, and my wife Megan to support us. My brother's been my right hand man, my entire racing career. Got to have him there. My mom, hopefully, and just anybody and everybody that's had a part to do with Tim Brown from 1992 when I started racing till today. I'd love to be there and have a part in it. At least.
How old is Cam? How old is Cam, and does he fully understand what this moment is? His daddy getting a race in NASCAR?
Yes, he's 8 years old, and he absolutely 100% understands the importance of it and how big it is, because that's all he talks about. Since I was able to show him the first rendering of the car that Rick shared with me and Robbie, I took it home and showed Cam and told him you can't tell anybody. And man, he teared up and he's like, "Dad, this is so cool. I can't believe it." And then he went, like once we made the announcement with Mike Arning and all, Cam was going to school and telling all his, 7 and 8-year-old buddies that his dad's going to be a Cup driver and all that. And just Marley's talking about it, and Cam, it's so cool, man. It makes me proud just for that side of it all alone. It makes it feel like to myself that all the work that I've put in and sacrifices I've made for 33 years of doing this is coming to fruition.
A couple of quick questions. I appreciate the time. What are the things that you're doing on the car that you will drive? Are you doing the suspension parts, or what are you working at? What on the car that you will drive will have your hands on it?
Pretty much, I'd say 60% of the car. Definitely have a big part of all the suspension parts, the racks, the steering, help install the motor, the seat interior, rear suspension, like all of it, basically. You know what I mean? I don't really have anything to do with the body hanging and things like that, but all the mechanical stuff of it, I'll have a part in.
And I'm assuming you've sat in the car, or at least the shell of the car at some point, at this point. And if so, look, you're a racer, you've seen that view from a viewpoint of the modified and other vehicles that you've raced. But what was it like to sit in the car, maybe for the first time, or was there anything that's hit you in this process of like, wow, this dream is coming true?
Well, here at RWR, I drive our race cars on the chassis dyno every Friday. So I sit on them quite a bit. But this one's a little bit different because I know that this is actually a race car that I'm going to go into battle with. So it's pretty cool from that side of it to just sit in it the moment that, hey, I'm actually going to get to race this one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin. Let's move on over to Claire B. Lang. Hello, Claire.
Hello. Hey, thank you, Tim, for coming on. So I love what you said about going into battle with this car at Bowman Gray Stadium. How aggressive do you think it will be? How aggressive do you plan to be to go into battle? And then how much do you think the advantage will go to those that have more experience there than others that don't, although they might be great NASCAR racers?
Yeah, that's great questions, Claire. And I think you're going to have to be super aggressive just to get the tires to fire to make lap times. I also think that any driver that's had any laps around the stadium is going to have an advantage over any driver that hasn't, simply for the fact that the grip level there is totally different. The line's different. That place is just unique. It's flat, completely flat. There's no banking at all. And that's a unique place all on its own. And as far as aggressive, we hope our car's fast enough that you really don't have to be that aggressive, but you'll just have to go into each circumstance and do what you have to do to get in the show and run as well as you can. If that was putting a bumper to somebody and moving them to get by us, what we have to do.
That's good. And also, I wanted to ask you about hooking up with Rick Ware and the status of that team, what you found there, what it's been like for you. We're going to talk to Rick Ware next. What about that team?
So a little tidbit of information there is, like, myself and Rick and my brother, we've been friends, goes back for 30 years, I would say 25 at least. When Rick was racing himself years and years ago, me and my brother were young and just trying to work on race cars and do things that we could to race our cars. So we would help Rick out and actually work for Rick some. And then when I departed from RFK, Rick and Robbie offered me a job here at RWR to work full time. And it's like home to me. Like it is really a good place to work. Rick and Robbie and Craig and Ken, everybody here, Tommy, all the people are super. Got a great group of guys out here working on race cars. It's a bunch of racers here building race cars to go compete. And that's what I am. So I fit right in here, right at home. And it's really been a blessing to me to be part of RWR. And then just to get the opportunity to drive for Rick and Lisa and the whole Ware family it is just unbelievable to me, honestly.
Going to be fun to watch you race. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Claire. Let's go on over to Kelly Crandall. Hello, Kelly.
Hello, Dan. Hi, Tim.
Hey.
I want to go back to what you said there about the initial conversation when it came up with Rick to do this. Can you walk us through how did this come about? And did you ever think that an opportunity to run a cup car, let alone at Bowman Gray, where you have so much history, did you think that ever would be possible?
I didn't. I'll be honest with you. Once I turned about 30 years old, I kind of gave up on my dream of my lifelong dream of being a cup driver, just because I'd seen that transition to where, one, you either had to be 12 or 13 years old and get signed, or two, you had to, have big money to pay an owner to let you drive. So I'd already given up on that dream, but I actually think it was a text that Rick sent me. He's like, "Hey man, did you hear that the Clash might go to Bowman Gray next year?" It's like, what? And then Rick was something like, "Man, if it happens, we'll see what we can do to get you in the car." And then I was like, "Heck yeah, how cool would that be?" And when finally the announcement was made that the Clash was coming to the stadium, I think Rick and Robbie were the first ones to call me that night or text me or something, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna make this happen." And I was like, "Heck yeah!" So naturally, I want to go tell everybody, right? But you can't. So it was. It's been tough, and I tell you, the hardest part of this for me has been keeping, because I've known about it for a while, right? Rick and Robbie and everybody's been working so hard behind the scenes to put this together for me, and we've had a bunch of conversations, but to even keep it from my wife and my kids and my brother and my race team and like influential people in my life that I really care about, that's the hardest part of it, right? Like, because you love these people so much and you want to be able to share everything with them. And when it come out, I've had people come, like, "Man, I thought we were tight. Why didn't you tell me this?" Like, couldn't I? You know what I mean? So it's been a really cool experience so far, and I can't thank Rick and Lisa and everybody at RWR enough for this opportunity.
So along those same lines, you also mentioned about the reaction that this has garnered. Were you seeing any of that for yourself, or were people informing you of how big a deal and how positive reaction this news has gotten?
So Mike Arning and his staff's been awesome because I don't do social media. I try to stay away from it just because, like, as a racer, there's probably more people out there that don't like you than are that do like you. And I'm a pretty passionate guy, so it's best if I just stay off of Facebook and social media. But Mike's done great of sharing like all the posts and things like that. And when other drivers, cup drivers, and owners are reaching out to you, it's like, "Man, this is cool. This is really cool." And like, "Hey, this is awesome. Good job. Congrats." And then you realize, like, man, this is a really big deal. You know what I mean? So just very blessed and fortunate to have this opportunity. And uh, how cool. It's just so cool.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go back and we'll close it out with Zach. Go ahead, Zach.
Thanks again, Dan. Tim, I know you've been doing this for quite a few years now in terms of working with Cup Series teams and, during the week, and then, come weekend time, you're at Bowman Gray or wherever else. How is that balancing act? I imagine there's not a bunch of spare time in the life of Tim Brown.
Cool. I hope my wife's listening because the balancing act falls on her, right? Because basically Megan has to run our entire household as far as getting the kids to school and home and feeding them and putting them to bed. Because like my day starts at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning and it ends about 10 o'clock at night. Because I live an hour and a half from work and then my shop's 15 minutes from the house. So, I've dedicated my whole life to it. And she knew that going in, like when we dated, I was a racer, right? So we got married and she kind of understood it. But it's just what I do. It's what racers do. We do what we have to do to go compete at the highest level that we can. And it's tough. I really don't have a balancing act. It's a hard conversation every now and then to have. Like, in my world, and I hate to say this, I can't really prioritize anything because working for a cup team or even on my race car, you never know what that day has in store for you. If NASCAR makes a rule change or someone comes out with a part that's better that'll make us faster, like for my deal, then you got to stay and get it done, right? So it's very important as a racer to have a wife that understands and doesn't complain and fuss about it too much. So Megan is how I survive basically.
Right on. And you kind of mentioned, with the fans and how passionate they are, and people that come from Florida, who knows where, all over to come and witness the stadium. What about the locals that, come there, just are there in the stands every week, sit in the same place every week, from Kernersville, Lexington, Winston, all these different places? How do you describe them and just what their passion is like for regulars week in, week out?
Well, it's really, really cool because I've done it long enough now that I've seen fans of mine that have kids and have grown up and still be fans, and those people have kids that are fans. So I've raced long enough now to see like a couple generations of of fans come through there, and it's really cool how they all sit in the same place every week, and they have for 25 or 30 years, and that's really cool. And I tell this story a lot. I grew up there, watching racing and sit in the stands, and I knew that I was going to race the following year, and I was telling the family that I was sitting with, like, hey, I'm going to be out there racing next year in a modified. And they're like, man, you're crazy. There ain't no way. Because here I am, just a little kid that's, been watching races there for a long time. And then sure enough, I wind up racing. And they're, older now, but they still come by and it's like, man, we can't believe we sat in the stands with you 30 some years ago and you told us you'd race. And now you've won 101 races and 12 championships here. And that's really cool just to have that kind of following. And they're there every Saturday night that place is open. They're there, and not only them, there's thousands of families that are like that, or they're there religiously every Saturday night.
Thank you.
Well, Tim, I personally can't wait to hear drivers' introductions, because there's one thing about Tim Brown is he's going to get a reaction. He's going to get bad and different. You mentioned the name Tim Brown on a Saturday night at Bowman Gray, and the crowd goes nuts both ways. So we wish you the best of luck. Congratulations on this opportunity, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you all for having me on. Appreciate it.